Good morning. So we have a much bigger crowd. This has grown every time that we've done it, and that's great to see. Today's obviously going to be our biggest event. We have 7 presenters for you, 8 color techniques, 2 haircuts, and a hair crafting technique. So we are going to be adjusting this going forward next year. We did have one tentatively scheduled for November, but because this one got pushed back and this one was a lot of work, we decided to cancel the one in November. But we're going to do these next year, and the event's going to change completely. We are going to be doing them at night. They are going to be kind of a trend soiree where you'll come in and it'll be like more of a fun environment with drinks and snacks and stuff like that kind of thing going on. And eventually, we will be inviting people from the outside to come and join us at this event. So we are totally changing the whole thing. We're growing, we're advancing, and I want to thank the 3 ladies up here who have been with me from the beginning on this. That's all right, don't fall. If you're new to the room, this is Miranda, who is from Robinson. Miranda used to do nail cutting training with Shannon, and now handles the creative technique class for the new guys down here at our center, and is also our very first elite colorist. So congratulations to her. Shannon is from Siena. Shannon has a long list of stuff that she does. She's one of the original Beauty on Demand team members from the very beginning. Was our second elite colorist of the group. Her and Sammy joined Miranda right after Miranda and I had that conversation and started that division. And she's also was teaching the nail cutting, which we have totally evolved now. And she actually wrote this class. I'm so proud of her. It's now called Flawless Fading, and it's non-gender, and it's clippering and fading from all types and styles. So it's us evolving and going forward. And she's obviously an elite colorist, and I think I'm missing something, but I know when I see your PowerPoint, I'll see there's something else up there, because I know her list is really long. Then we have Sammy from Cranberry. Sammy is also one of our Beauty on Demand, and just got to do, what's her name?
Alicia Silverstone.
She did Alicia Silverstone's hair. She was in Pittsburgh here, went downtown and did her hair for her. It was a great event, and we had fabulous feedback from it. Is also one of our elite colorists that does also trains at the salon and things of that nature as well. So these 3 ladies have really helped us build a new concept. And when I say that, they're not just coming here and doing anything. We actually meet, we decide what the trends that we think we really want to present as a company going forward. We filter through a whole bunch of stuff that you see all over the place through training and social media and things of that nature, come up with the techniques that we really think we can use and are going to have some lasting effect in the salons, and then we present them to you. We also have 4 guest speakers that are going to be presenting today as well. I'll introduce them as they come up. But so you're going to have 7 people in all. We're going to try and keep this flowing, and we're going to get started right now. So I'm going to turn this over to Miranda.
Alrighty. All right, so my model today is my mom. So everybody meet my mom, Patty. What we did with her hair so far is she was pretty heavily highlighted for quite a while. We're moving her into a more brunette type of color now for the fall. We want to keep that dimension. She's used to seeing like multi-tones in her hair, and we want to keep that richness. So what I'm going to do today is a very like soft, subtle highlighting technique that's going to keep that dimension in her hair, but still keep her overall brunette. But something that's not, it'll look a little bit more natural because we're not going to be looking at one brown tone all over, okay? So I'm going to start right around the face because I want that halo area to be my brightest. And this is really only going to be about, I'd say between 15 and 20 foils. And we really want to focus those foils on pieces that are really going to accentuate her base color. We don't need to overfoil this because our goal is not to make her blonde. So I'm gonna see if I can squeeze in this corner so that you guys can see me a little bit better. Is that okay there? And if you have any questions, shout them out at me. If you have been in my creative color class, you've probably heard me say 100 times that the balayage board is not my favorite tool. Well, I'm going to use the balayage board because we're always evolving and learning, and I take back everything I said, okay? So I'm doing a bit of a weave here, and I'm going to tease this around her face. Now, this is going to be a little bit more of what I consider a traditional foil rather than a balayage, but I'm going to take my board here and place it right up against her root. I'm going to pin that down, and then that gives me a nice surface to paint on. And then I'm just going to feather that right up into my root area. So I'm going to do about 2 of these foils on each side, and then just a couple in the front to give her that halo. Our hair naturally lightens from the sun the most around our face because that's our finest section of hair and it's what's exposed to the sunlight. So I want to mimic that with her brunette look. Even though we're still going to have an overall brown color, I want to mimic what the sun does to our hair naturally because we all know our hair's naturally not one tone. But I'm just going to move forward with these same highlights on the other side, and then I'll get to her face. So Shannon, if you want to jump in, you're more than welcome to if you're ready.
Thank you. So basically what I did is I did 3 different foiling techniques going all the way up the back. And I incubated them all in different ways so that way that they would lift a little bit differently. So that way whenever I put the toner on, which I'm going to do now, is that it will kind of take in different ways and give me those different variants of different colors throughout her hair. So is everybody kind of familiar with like the air touch type? So I'm just going to demonstrate it real quick before I go into my video where I'm going to show how I put in her foils. So basically you're going to take a kind of strip of hair and you're going to take your blow dryer and you're going to be going all the way at the root, holding it very like kind of tautly at the ends like this. And bringing it up. Usually you would be in front of it, but I want you guys to show or to see. So as you can see, you have this different variant in here. So you would separate that area. And that is what's going to give you the kind of different dimension. This is going to be the heavier part. And aesthetically, I chose to make those the ones that I air touched a little bit higher up. So as you can see, some of them are in foil and really, really thin, and some of them are air touched as well. So this first one that you see I put on there, I air touched her hair. And then the next one, I kind of split in half, and I really made sure that it was very, very light so it would lift pretty. This is the one that I would say probably lifted the lightest because I did such a small section on it. So it was just a baby light and a regular kind of like balayage in the foil. And then the next one, I did the entire slice, baby lit it, and then this would be my open air one that I didn't incubate at all. So this would be the one that doesn't really lift as much as the rest. And I did that all the way up, going left to right, basically, so that way I never really had any kind of overlap of technique, and that they all kind of went the same. And then in between a few of them, I did pull through a little bit of a lighter brown just to kind of give her a little bit of depth because she did have some old highlights in there. So with her color here, I am going to go up in a halo section. And to give her that kind of like burnt wooden look, we're going to go in with like kind of a smokier color. So I'm actually going to go through this halo area with a 975. So that's going to give her that violet-y tone. And I also decided on this tone because of Ruth's tonality of her skin. So I also, on the top, whenever I foiled, just to kind of reiterate, I pulled it away from the face. So that way we got a little bit more in the crown. We're starting to see people still do a little bit of a baby light, but we're starting to kind of see it go away from the like total money piece, the solid money piece. We're starting to see maybe a little tiny baby light right around the face, but it's not this solid piece. So we're starting to kind of pull those highlights away from the face. And I'm going to kind of work all the way up with this. And then our next halo is actually going to be the 835. So that's going to give it a little bit more of that reddish hue. So this is kind of what we're going for at the end, if you can kind of see. What I like to kind of explain it as like if you were to kind of cut open a tree stump and kind of that detail that you would see in that area of the different tones. Any questions about that? No? Okay. I can turn it over to Sammy while I go all the way up with her.
All right, so the technique that I'm showing today is kind of going to be a basic application with your single app on top and then melting into a different tone. I'm seeing a lot of like old balayages, kind of blending them out, making them softer, but really what I'm going to show today is the nude and blush tones that are coming in for fall. So today, what I'm going to do on her is something very similar to this. So I'm kind of utilizing those old like highlights that she has as the balayage. If you need to add that, you can go in and add it. But we already kind of had that working today. So with that, you know, if you do want to do the balayage pre-done wise, it's going to be just a basic 4-section just to get some of those pieces pulled up. And then now I'm just going to go in and pull my tones through. So for my root color, I'm using 2 parts 973 to 1 part, 773 to 1 part 841, just to kind of have a little bit of a smokier look to it, but still have that like blush tone. And then my ends are 2 parts 1034 and 1 part 973. So I want to kind of keep that 973 in the family. but my root's gonna have that little bit more ash in there, and my ends are gonna be a little bit more warm. I can pass it back to Miranda.
So I'm just working on these very top highlights to create this soft halo, and Shannon kind of led me right into that. Even though we're doing kind of this front money piece, it's a lot more baby lighted than in the past. So I'm weaving these out and teasing them just to make them very like fine sections, because again, I want to mimic what the hair kind of does on its own naturally. So I am taking these a little bit finer. Kind of doing 2 foils all the way around. And then what we're gonna start to work on, because naturally our hair is finest on the ends. We know when we do a traditional highlight, we get that concentration of color up towards the roots, and then we kind of lose that dimension on the ends. Once I get my traditional foils in, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna kind of tip out some of these pieces with some balayage so that we get that density of the color throughout and we're not getting a concentration up towards the root area. Any questions so far? Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. No, that's a great question. There'll be a little bit, because these pieces are so fine. There'll be a little bit of a better visual once I get to the pieces we're tipping out. But I am trying to keep my angle centered towards the front and angled a little bit lower towards like the ear area, so that I'm always working in like an upward angle. Even the way I'm taking my sections is at a slight angle, so that's kind of creating that for me in itself too. Absolutely. Yeah, it does not bother me whatsoever if any of you guys want to come take a closer look. I'm not a great contortionist, so sometimes it's hard for me to twist around so everyone can see. I am trying to work a little bit deeper into these top 2 sections, only because she has a bang area that we're growing out, and once this is finished, I don't want the concentration of color just to sit in her bangs. Also, because she has a bang area that we're growing out, I'm really trying to keep this pattern of highlights cohesive. I don't want her bangs to look heavier than the rest of her hair and vice versa. I want to keep that very, you know, patterned. Great. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that I notice a huge difference in processing. For me, it's a little peace of mind because I'm a worrier, anyone can tell you. And once I fold it up in the foil, I'm like, did I bruise the hair? Like, did I roll it into like my next section? So it really just kind of gives me a little bit security that that hair is not sitting on top of itself. That's not me. I'm not a worrier. I don't worry about anything. Not a care in the world, right, Julie? So now that I've focused on this front, her mohawk section is going to kind of coincide with these highlights and be a little bit more of a traditional foil placement that we're used to. I'm going to get that mohawk section out of my way, And I'm gonna work on the underneath of a little bit more of a balayage to create that like tipped out look where we're not getting too much concentration at just the root. You okay under there? All right, so I'm taking out this mohawk here. This is gonna be my last section, only because I find it a little bit easier to work in that direction. I'm gonna put a few bigger pieces in through here because I don't want her interior to look bare. Even though this is a pretty subtle look, I still want some dimension for when she curls her hair or pulls it up or anything. So these are gonna be some bigger balayage pieces, and then I'll work on the top. It's just a little bit easier for me to section the hair in that direction.
So for mine, I do want to reiterate that this would be a creative color that I'm doing on Ruth. So this would be something that you would charge hourly for, even though it kind of seems like it might be a full head balayage. But since you are taking that extra time, especially that you're putting your kind of own artistic flair into something like this, you want to always make sure that you're charging what you're worth and charging that creative color price.
So in the back here, for where I'm going to do a little bit more of a balayage type of placement, I have her just placed out in 4 sections. Now, the way I'm going to paint my balayage, I can take these a little bit thicker. So it's really just gonna be kind of 4 balayaged pieces through here. And I'm gonna slice out a pretty big chunk of hair there and weave it. And then working in these angled directions, it's gonna cover more of that panel of hair for me as I work. So I'm getting more hair colored, faster, smaller, like quicker sections. So I'm gonna get this teased real nice, and then I'm going to do a little bit more of a traditional paint on this hair. We're really kind of focusing on the tips here to keep that concentration of color consistent.
So it's kind of just, I'm just going in there real quick and doing kind of almost like triangular like partings. What I am trying to do is keep the lighter on the top. So whenever I go in, I'm taking a little bit less from the top and more from the bottom with the darker color. And then when I'm going with the lighter color, I'm taking a little bit more from the top and less from kind of the interior. So I'm kind of just making sure I'm doing that. We already made our dimension in that sense by the way we kind of foiled it, whereas this was kind of just almost like a toner technique rather than like an actual like single app technique. Did I answer your question? Okay.
And you can see now that I'm starting to focus those angles a little bit more so that I'm keeping the halo around the face, and that's going to center that brightness of color in the front for me.
So I don't know if you guys can see, but as I'm doing the single app process, I'm kind of make sure I'm concentrating it here. Then I'm also carrying some of this color down in. And when I start to do my end color, I'm gonna like melt this all together so it gives like that softer look there. Yeah, so when I pull it forward when she's styled, it's gonna kind of have that effect where it goes around her face because I'm working at that angle this way.
Now these bigger sections that I'm working on, I'm using the board at the end, but I like to start without the board just because for me it's a personal preference, but I like to really get that tension on that hair so I can paint that in and really get that kind of like seamless blend to it. And then to help with my saturation, I feel like the board gives me a really nice surface to paint on. So once I've created like my seam there, then I'll place it on the board to get that heavier saturation. So I'm only using 10. My goal is to get her to like a 7. I want it to be really blended, so. I love that question. Mhm. I still love the paintbrush. So I'm a little bit of a diva, and I use all the tools for a balayage. I like them all for different things. So real quick, just so that I don't lose my train of thought, I'm gonna move on to this next section. Again, I'm gonna take this at an angle that's gonna sit right across my mohawk. It's gonna be pretty similar to my below section. But I do like the paintbrushes for when I want heavier saturation, but to me the tools you're choosing is all about the level of saturation in incubation that you want. So the paintbrushes give you a pretty high saturation, where the smaller, especially the angled brushes, give you a lighter saturation. So to me, balayage is all about that transition of saturation. So I like a lighter, smaller brush for the top to create that seamless look, and then I'll move into a paintbrush to get that heavier saturation on the bottom. And I know the entire company's probably sick of hearing me say it, but I love the sponge. I love the sponge so much. If you've never tried it, try it, because then I'll apply the product and move the product upward, and that line just like disappears.
Actually, could I have you go and sit over this way?
So again, the
Okay.
colors that I'm using, so my base color is 773 and 841. And then my ends are 10-4 or 10-3-4 and 9-7-3. So I kept that 7-3 on both formulas to kind of have that like marrying of the two. So normally what I do is right there. You want to really like kind of mesh those together when you're pulling through. No, the ends are all the 10 and the 9. Yep. I have not. Most of the time when I do a melt, I will just do all demi-permanent. I did use permanent on her root today just because I needed to get a little bit of lift. But I really haven't, as long as you're really like mushing that together, and it usually blends out pretty seamlessly. Yeah. Yeah. I'm only like a level and a half to 2 levels off. Yeah. I used 20 on her root, and then I have 1.9 on the ends. I kind of like to get like the face frame really good. Like her underneath isn't quite as light and lifted, so I'm just kind of depositing a little bit onto that. But it would really just depend on, if you did do a previous like balayage, if that's really, really light in the front, I would probably start in the back.
So I'm setting Madeline up for an updo. Thought it would be a good time to do an updo right now since we're getting into homecoming season and everything. I'm gonna let these ladies finish a little bit more though before I really get into it.
So I have, real quick before I move into my next section, I have her halo piece around here, pretty fine, weaved and teased. Back through here, I have a little bit more of the balayage pieces. Those are just gonna create that dimension underneath her hair. And then I'm going to move on to the mohawk section. Now, even though these are gonna be a little bit more traditional, what I wanna create with this mohawk section is I want my front foils to be a little bit closer together because that's going to create more concentration of color towards this front, which is kind of our overall theme that we're going. Now, as I move back to her crown area, I'm going to stretch these and over direct them a little bit more, so I'm creating a little bit more of a root. That way, when this hair falls, I can kind of see an angle that those highlights created for her, okay? I'm still gonna weave and tease these because I want everything to be like so soft, so subtle.
Do you have the pictures? Oh, awesome. You can. So what we're seeing a little bit more on the red carpet and everything like that this year is very, very simplistic updos, which is great for us because it sometimes takes like 20 minutes to do, which is great, right? So we're seeing a lot of twists, very simple, slicked back updos. Even at like something as fancy as the Met Gala, we saw like the Kardashians and stuff with just a part slicked back into a bun. So I'm going to kind of go over how you would do that in kind of a little bit more of an elevated way. I will say the only hair that this specific updo does not really, really work well on is highly layered hair because you do need a little bit more length. So you're going to start with a very like basic curl. Just make sure you have a little bit of bend at the end, right? So at first, I am going to go through her hair and decide where her part is, where I want it to lay, and everything like that. So I'm going to actually leave down 2 pieces because that kind of seems to be also the trend. It's kind of going back circa like 1995 whenever we just pulled out 2 little strands in the front. But it's coming back, so we're going to do that. So we're just going to make sure that that part's really nice and clean. And I'm going to kind of dry sketch, if you will, where we want the hair to be at first. So I want this to be going back in this area. And I'm going to take my little pins in here and kind of map out where I want that hair to be going. I like glaze. On dry, like if it's at prep, but I am going to go in and show you, I'm actually going to use the mousse dry on the hair. And our mousse is so perfect for this because it is so flexible, whereas a lot of like tougher mousse products are like very harsh and it doesn't give you that workable space. So like I said, just dry sketching where I want this to go. I did try, so the girl that did a few of these smaller like pin curl pins, and then she had the like larger ones in there, but I didn't really like the larger ones because I felt like every single time I took it out, it was kind of like pulling at it. So I liked a little bit of a smaller detail personally. It does take a little bit more time to do it this way, but whenever you're considering the fact that this is kind of a 15-20 minute updo, it doesn't really matter that it takes you a little bit more time to smooth out this top, right?
So I want you guys to have a visual kind of as I go. As I'm moving down this mohawk section, each skip is getting a little bit thicker. That's something you're going to kind of use your creative judgment on. But my foils, instead of pushing these to the root at each section, I'm laying them parallel to each other, which is stretching the root more and more as I go. Very fine, yeah, and thicken it up. Yep, yep.
So I just went through with the mousse just to smooth it out a little bit on top. As you can see, it gave it that really nice sleek topped area. And then I'm even going to go microly through each section where I have this pinned with a little bit more mousse and really fine tune it out with my little clips. So if you need me to move, just kind of, I'll do this side first. So I'm just going to take a little bit of mousse in my hands and take this out here. Yeah. I think we like kind of shy away from the mousse because it's such like people kind of see it as a very like old fashioned type thing. But especially with, like I said, our mousse, it's so much more flexible than any other mousse. I think a lot of people think crunchy whenever they think mousse, but that's not necessarily the case with this. And as you can see, that got it real nice and slick in there. It's really nice too if you ever have somebody with an updo, and this is actually pretty in right now as well. If you have somebody with an updo that has like a little bit more of a detail, like they almost like comb down their like little baby hairs around their pieces, around the sides. It's really good just to use a little bit of mousse in your comb just to kind of set it down in that way. Yeah, I tested it out with a lot of different products, and this is the one that worked the best, which, yeah. I'm just taking the fine tooth part, and I'm kind of following it with my fingers just to make sure that it really lays down nicely. And I'm just going to kind of continue that until I get to the other side. Good. It's funny because that's what she wants. She was like, somebody paint my hair just the other day.
So now I'm just going to process her for another 20 minutes, get it all rinsed out. I did want to talk about real quick though, with the nude and blush tones coming into play. With this one, I'm doing more of a melt, but I have seen a lot more that are just, root to end, all the same tone. And with these pictures and these looks, they're more of a skin tone color, so you do have to watch, with your client, if they're showing you these pictures, the makeup with it. If you're not going to wear any makeup, it's going to wash you out. It is very like matchy with your skin tone. What I'm seeing is a bold lip, blush, and like a little bit more of a darker eyeliner. It doesn't have to be a full face of makeup, but it is more bold on the eyes and the lips. So that's something to kind of, talk to your guests about, if they are willing to wear like makeup. If they're not, might not be the best choice for color-wise. So Any questions? Yeah. No. Good. So it really kind of depends. This is pretty customizable. Like if I was to do like the balayage on her today, I would definitely do that as a creative color. Probably do like just this because I didn't have to do that. I would do it as a color melt. I would definitely suggest still doing that like 6 to 8 weeks, but alternating them. So the next time you might not have to, touch up some of those foils, just do the color melt or vice versa. Especially because I did use permanent on her root. She's going to need that in a couple weeks. So, so yeah. 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 Yeah, I just did one the other day, and I just did the color melt. But like I said, if I was going to do the full foil and everything, that would be creative. So. Yeah. Yeah, just like a touch up like this, I would do the color melt. Full blown, obviously, go into the hourly. Any other questions? I'm going to pull my next one up. I'm going to have you come over here.
So now that I've done this mohawk section, all I did was I took all my skipped sections down the center, I split them in half, and now I'm going to tip out those pieces that sit in between so she has a nice cohesive color like all through that mohawk section. So just one on each side, just split it right down the middle, and I'm just going to hand paint each one.
So this is a pre-done model. So this is Jackie. So I've been seeing a lot of natural curled highlights. So you can see I have a couple different inspirations up here. We actually did have her just like the natural, like the lighter brown blonde for a while. And then we went in and put the green over top of it. So what I've been doing is, so that's what she looked like before the green. And then, so my technique, I do just a basic foil, but I do a pretty big zigzag with it. And then I keep it about a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch off the scalp and just kind of feather. So you get that nice texture, and you do have a little bit of that shadow in there, and it's not directly right at her root, so that it kind of gives that nice halo effect. I think did I send you those pictures? Okay, yeah. So, and that's pretty much it. So if you guys want to look, you can kind of see it comes all through here. And we did this, about a month and a half ago? In like June or July. Oh, yeah. So it has grown out, and it doesn't have like a real harsh line of demarcation or anything with it, especially with like the curls. Any questions? Mm-hmm. Yep, we're good.
All right, so that's my last piece. So you can see we don't have a ton of foils packed in there, but enough that it's really going to create some nice natural dimension for her. And I don't know if you guys can have a good visual of how those foils are stacked together and they hang a little bit lower, closer to the crown. Any questions on that? Oh, thank you. Yeah, I don't look at color a whole lot different than hair cutting, really. I still think that you should follow the natural shape of the head and, what's going to flatter the growth of the hair the best. So that's kind of how I like to think about it. Cool. Thank you. All right, I'll swap you out.
All right, and we're just finishing up her smoothed out area. As you can see, it's pretty smooth on the top, and it gives that nice shine without looking too like crispy. So I kind of smoothed as I took those pins out, I put this in. So then what I'm gonna do is I have taken a small elastic and attached 2 bobby pins to it. So I'm gonna do kind of like a pinch between my pointer finger and my thumb. And I'm gonna spread them out first a little bit in my fingers. So you're gonna be like this. And you're gonna go underneath here. And you're gonna stretch this out and flip this up. And kind of sprawl it out and get your bobby pins in on each side.
Pocket?
No, I kind of anchor them in. Yeah. So then I'm gonna kind of detail this area right here and pull that out. So the cool part about this is if you want to kind of set the hair in like little twists and then do this as well to get like a little bit more of a twisted updo, you can do that as well. As you can see, this is exactly why it wouldn't really work on super layered clients, because you'd have kind of just all these different lengths in here. So you're gonna have here, and you're gonna just like pull out until this is as big as you want it to be. So then you have this little area in here. Anybody have any questions about that? Because that is kind of tricky. You definitely want to make sure that your hands are like this. I think a lot of us kind of hold the bobby pins like this. And then once you're here, it's kind of hard to anchor in. So you want to kind of go up like that. Does that make sense? Okay. What's that? I did find it on a kind of similar one, and I kind of adapted it from there. So what I'm gonna do is, the nice part about this too, it's a minimal bobby pin updo. So I'm actually going to just kind of give this area, just split it in half, and I'm just gonna give it a little twist. And a little bit more length over here, actually. And I'm going to give the other one a little twist as well. It doesn't have to be a perfect twist, just enough to kind of give it some detail. And then I'm going to cross it over each other. And then I'm actually just going to take an elastic and tie that off at the bottom here. So then you can kind of mess with that and get everything into this will spray for me. And then you're just going to take a few bobby pins and roll this up into your updo. I love it. All right, so then you have a pretty little, I did see somebody do something similar where they kind of just, they put like a little gem right here. I'm not gonna get too perfect. If I got too perfect with it, I'd be up here all day. But just to kind of give you guys, I know you know how we are about like making sure everything's perfect, especially with updos. So that's it. If anybody wants to come up and kind of look to see how that was, how it looks up close. And it doesn't feel tacky. No, but it still gives that nice shine. Yeah. And you can use that for a lot of different things. I've seen people do like two, just to kind of give yourself like, it gives yourself like a really nice beveled curl, but it kind of like sticks it out without like putting like a full elastic onto it that makes it like stick straight out of the head. If that makes any sense? Yeah, I probably used like 5 or 6 bobby pins on her. Yeah. How's it feel? Feel nice and secure? Yeah. What's that? It looks cute. Yeah, I like you with your hair up.
Okay, let me introduce now Beth from the block.
Oh.
And our newest elite colorist. Also a creative captain salon at the block does creative stuff. So I'm going to turn it over to.
Okay. Is this on?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, Thanks. I'm Beth. I'm going to be doing my beautiful cousin Lindsay today. We're going to demonstrate a high impact blonde with very minimal foils. I think a lot of times when people get confused if they say they want a bright blonde, you have to have some of that contrast to show it off. You don't want to just have all one flat color. So sometimes people get into over highlighting. So this is just going to show you how to do basically like 18 foils, but it's going to look like a full head highlight. I know the past few designers up here were talking about price points that they do. Whenever I do this technique, I do also charge it as a creative color. It doesn't take a lot of time, but I am trying to transition almost all of my colors into creative colors. So what I'm gonna do first, I don't know if you guys saw on the sheet, there's, I think, like I said, 18 foils. So I'm just gonna split her hair down the middle and the back and have her look all the way down. And I'm gonna do 2 highlights at the hairline, just so if she pulls her hair up, you would see that bright blonde underneath. Depending on how wide their nape is, you could do, like how you see on there, it's just 1 foil. You could always do 2. So Lindsay has a little bit of a crazy hairline. So instead of doing a traditional foil down, I'm actually going to do it on an angle and go up. So I'm going to do a small weave. Can you guys see? I am going to overlap the lightener back here just because she got a little bit brassy. Since Lindsay and I are cousins, we're both very pale, so we love self-tanner. So that's just a little bit of self-tanner back there. We're going to lighten through. Oh, yeah.
Next, I want to introduce What happened is I did too. This is an artistic level designer with us as well. He's also done a lot of prior trends with us, as those of you who come in the past have seen her results. It's her model that's on the cover of the manual as well, which I think you're going to show later on. But I'm going to turn it over to you here.
Thanks. So, all right, I'm gonna try not to say anything awkward.
Take them off here.
Thank you.
Oh wait.
I'll fix that.
Good.
We were almost there. You're close.
This one is a little weird. There.
We tried. We tried. Thanks. All right. So on Olivia today, I had her already pre-lightened. But basically I'm doing something along the lines of creative color, but also piggybacking what Sammy said about like the nudes that are in right now. So this is like a fun way to do a creative color without having the crazy, crazy colors that not everybody wants. So I'm doing mostly muted tones. So on this section, I'm actually doing an 8. I put a 7 on here, but I decided an 8 last minute. So this is an 8 NAMT that I'm applying right now. And it's almost going to be sort of like a split dye, but off part, if that makes sense. And then on everything else, I'm going to be using all different muted tones like bronze, rose gold, and a lot of mauve quartz. And then I'm also going to do a little bit of this 8 NAMT all over the root, all over, and that's going to make everything kind of flow together. Does that make sense to everybody? All right.
I'm also going to introduce Casey from Rochester. She's been with us about 6 months, although it seems like she's been with us for very long. She came to us with a lot of experience and has jumped into the salon, and I would say if you've heard of what she does, it's like great color. So great job, and let's turn it over to you.
Is it? Hi. Okay, so she actually is pre-done. I do a lot of lived-in color, lived-in blondes, dimensional brunettes, things like that. So these are both my works. It's basically people that want to transition into more of a fall blonde, something less maintenance for them, something that they can come about like every so often for like a couple of months, just for a maintenance appointment. So she actually had about, like 5 inches of regrowth before. So I didn't really need to add a low light for her, but I'll show you my technique right now. So for the front, just like Miranda was saying, the chunky money pieces aren't really in anymore for fall. We want it more muted and diffused. So I will do around her hairline, 3 or 4, depending how bold you want to go, baby lights right off the scalp. And I have it keyed right there, so a tease weave, baby light, slice, and tip out ends. If you have any questions, you can stop me, and I'll explain any of this because I know it's like a lot. So then I do 3 off the head. I always pivot with the hairline, so when they pull it back, you don't have any dark spots when they pull back their ponytail. And then I do 2 off the ear. So I just kind of pivot around the head for that. And then for her sides, what I'll do is pivot through the hairline as well, going from diagonal to horizontal, and I'll either weave and tease, or I'll just baby light and weave if I'm adding a low light. Every 2 foils, I'll add a low light, and it's a thick weave, so it looks like a ribbon once it's all done, and it's curled out. And then same with her back, along her hairline, so when they pull it up, they have a really nice natural hairline, so I'll do 3 baby lights back to back. And then I'll start the same process where it's a slice and then a tease weave. And then in between, if I'm adding a low light, which I really didn't need to for her because she had so much regrowth. And honestly, pre-done, it's already pretty blended, but we want to still do a shadow root just to get those lines of demarcation out. And then anything that is not in a foil, I will actually take and weave as well, and then I'll tease her ends and balayage them. I use free lights. I don't use blonder on their ends, especially if it's kind of compromised or fragile. I don't want it to really damage the ends anymore, and I won't push it all the way through, so I will just kind of feather it up. Does anyone have any questions about the highlight first? Cool. So we're gonna melt her. This is my color melting technique. So it's really just something that's going to be a halo drop throughout the head, so it's less maintenance for her and it just kind of blends everything in. I am using 6-stroke 0 and 5-stroke 1 for her root, 6 volume, and then I am using 881, 986, 1081, all equal parts. And then in all my icy clients, I don't care how ashy you want to be, I always add some gold to it just to keep it brighter. So we're adding 1003, about 3 to 5 grams, depending on how porous the hair is, just to brighten it up because I don't want it to look dull or just kind of muddy when I blend it down. What I'll do is root stretch on a diagonal, tone mid to ends, and I'm going to show you guys. I just want to wet her down first because I will never do a shadow root on dry hair because it will be patchy if you brush it through, especially if you're not careful. It'll go on the blonde, and then you're going to have unwanted brown tones on the blonde, and then you have a mess to fix. Okay? Cool. I'm going to wet her down real quick, and I'll jump to someone else.
So I'm on the sides now. I don't know if you saw, I did a thin weave on the first part, and now I'm going to connect the front to the back and do a big teased slice. So everything, you'll see this is starting up here, and it's going to connect to that back foil also, just so you don't have any dark spots. Okay, I'm going to turn her around and do the same thing on this side. Then weave. Lindsay has fine hair, so I do definitely a fine section. Even if I'm doing a lot of foils, I prefer to do really thin sections, even if I have to do them back to back, just so they're saturated a little bit better. So even if she had very dense hair, I would still kind of do the same way.
So over here, I finished that top section. This is everywhere that I pulled the 8 NAMT completely through. And then everywhere else, I'm going through and just outlining the roots. Not too far, just about like an inch. But everything I kind of do just to like looks. But it's just enough to kind of like blend those colors all together and make it look, you know, kind of one color all together.
Yes. All my slices are teased. So now I have the back and sides done. You can see how like quickly you guys can get through this. So now I'm gonna do 2 weaved baby lights right up front. Again, the big money piece is kind of out, so we're not doing big chunks anymore. I'm gonna do 2 of those, and then I'm gonna weave 6 highlights, and I'm just gonna slice them all, but the weaves get deeper as it goes back, so it kind of flows down softer. Anytime I'm doing the hairline, there's not like a specific way that I go in. I kind of detail it, determining on how their hair grows.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to part out her money piece, and I'm going to save that for last just so it's brighter. And I'm also going to just tap the root there to diffuse the roots and not really shadow it down too much, just so everything is nice and bright around the face. So I'll go in first with my root. And I don't like a lot of product on my brush because I like to control it. And you just start going into a teardrop motion. So you just angle it down. If anyone wants to come up and get a closer look, you can. So you can just dry it down. And then I like to brush it through. I like to use a wet brush. I know you can get color wow combs and things like that. That'll just help it blend a little better. I just like my wet brush because I have more control, so I can customize. And this is totally customizable. If you want just a tap, you can. After I get that initial section down, I'll start parting on diagonals, and I'll just start working my way down. So again, just tapping. Yeah, I like an angle brush for my root, especially just because if not, I just think it just gives too much of a demarcation. Yeah. And I really like to take my time with this. I book my blonde clients out for 3 hours just because I like to pay attention to them and make sure everything's like blended and things like that. I do book creative color for all my blondes just because normally if they show me a picture, if it's something like this, it's going to take me a while. So. Yeah.
Whenever I'm working on the hairline, the second foil back, I always like to make sure it's not just in this small little section too. I like to kind of take it back to where almost her partial area would be, just so you have more coverage. No, 2 weaves in the front and then everything else is a slice. The little zigzag is a tease. It's kind of confusing. I tease every single one. Yeah. No, that's okay. No, that's okay. So then I'm going to connect her 2 front foils. Just a small piece right here. We still want like a little bit of a pop up front, so to have that pop, you need a little bit of a drop. So this will remain dark right here.
So over here, I'm starting to get back into, I got all her root done, so now I'm going into and doing like the colors. I don't use foils when they're all very similar colors like this because I kind of want them to cut in between and like get just a better blend. So I'm just going through and taking basically slices and coloring them whatever color I kind of feel like at the time. I always do this on dry hair.
I like to let my root process first for about 10 to 13 minutes just so it doesn't hit my lighter toner, and it has like a weird little space where it mixes and you have like a line of mixed toners from like a 6 to an 8, so in between. So I'll just let that process while I'm going through the hair, and then I'll start on her other side, but you can see how it's a diagonal down. So it's nice and blended from the halo. To her other side. If anyone wants to watch and come closer, let me know. And then after I do one section, I'll also hit her ear. Just to make sure her hairline's good. And then I'll brush it through this way. Just so you have blend on every angle and not just going straight down. So when she pulls it back, it's still nice and blended. So I always recommend 12 weeks because they can go pretty long, so at least 3 months. I always tell them their first appointments is probably going to be their most expensive and most lengthy, but then after that, their upkeep is going to be easier for them. If they have lowlights and highlights, I would probably say 8 weeks, but then they would only need a partial because you really don't have to go through again and highlight them the whole way. You really just have to touch it up and tone it. But for her, since she likes it pretty blonde, I would say like 10 to 12 weeks to do the whole thing. And like a gloss. Yeah, I always say let's do a toner in between just because with like the hard water and stuff like that, it is gonna fade, especially if they have lowlights. I like to use pastel for my lowlights and permanent, especially if they're porous, because it's gonna fade out quickly. So I will use permanent and then pastel with Wella for my lowlights. And then my shadow root, depending on how bright they are or if they want a deeper base, I'll also use pastel.
Okay, and this is the last foil. Sorry, I feel like I'm a heavy breather. I know. So I keep flipping it up. Okay, and there's your 18 foil high impact blonde. We like a nice bright blonde, so I'm gonna tone her with 10-6 and the smallest amount of 10-03 just so it doesn't grab too violet and keeps it nice and bright. All right, thank you. That.
Sorry. So occasionally I am adding something a little bit more vibrant. So pretty much always when I do these muted tones, I add one color that'll kind of pop, and for me that's the Hot Kiss. So all of these are kind of the muted tones except for that one color, and I'm just going to do it here and there just to pop whenever it's all done. What's your bright color? Hot Kiss. It's like an orangey pinky color. That's a good question. So after I shampoo the lightener out, I don't use conditioner, and that's really important anytime you're doing any creative color. If you condition in between the lightener and the creative color will not stick. So that goes for any of those bright colors or anything like that. So make sure you're always conscious to like shampoo, but no conditioner. So after that, I would comb it out and put them under the dryer while I mix up all the other colors, because that kind of kills two birds with one stone to get them started on their drying. And then I'll finish them up with the hand dryer and then put the next color on. But it is really important that you do it on dry hair. Creative colors just stick a little bit better whenever it's dry. Occasionally, yeah. Today I did have her pre-toned a little bit. She was very, very, very brassy when I lifted her up. So I pre-toned with the pale platinum and pale silver mix, and that's what we're going over top of today. Actually, that was a good question though. Toning is really, really important as well with this kind of stuff, because if you're, just for example, if you're lifting yellow, which everybody does, and then you're putting something like a blue on it, it's going to turn green. So no matter what your color that you're putting on is, it's always really important to pre-tone. Today I used the pale silver and pale platinum mix, like even parts with a little bit of the brass kicker, and the pastel developer. But that's always my go-to for any of these.
You like the pastel better than the 1.9?
For this specifically, yes, because I feel like it kicks it just a little bit more than the 1.9 would. But for if I was using it just as a toner, I probably would just use the 1.9. So yes, actually I did do it. So she was already pre-lifted from a previous color she had. So I did apply to the root because that's what I had lifted that day first. And then yeah, I pulled through the ends for the last just like 5 minutes or so. And I did that right at the sink.
For the back, you're just going to apply the root the same. You're just going to be mindful of how you put your foils. So my technique is always diagonal, diagonal, horizontal. So it's like a balayage technique, but you're also getting full coverage. So my foils will always be one here, and I'll go one here. So I'll do the same thing with my root drop. I'll kind of make it a V, so you'll leave that depth.
So as you guys can see, Taylor's hair is super, super long. So we're going in not any layers or anything like that. So we're going to take some length off, do a lot of layering, over directing, creating like a lot of flow in the front. As you can see in the picture, she had more of like a shorter curtain bang that needed more blended into her layers. So she reiterated that she when she pulls her hair up, she likes to have those pieces fall down. So this is like a really good technique for that feel, just to keep it really light without going that heavy, heavy curtain bang. And just creates a lot of movement and layers in the hair. So I'm gonna start with just the base. So I'll just go through and just section off like a traditional cut, volumetrics, long layer cut. Well, I only did her hair on dry just because she has like really textured hair. We didn't really, for the sake of time of like blow drying and styling and all that stuff. And you're gonna see more of her cut when she dry styles it anyway. She doesn't really wear her hair curly. But I did that cut. The picture you showed was on wet hair and then blow dry and all that stuff. Yeah, she's got a lot of hair. I don't know if this pumps up anymore. No, it's okay. I'll just bend down.
I'm just adding the lighter toner to the bottom. I always put a towel on the head so the blonde doesn't touch the root, just so nothing gets messed up. And then I will just do the same thing. I'll put the lighter toner from mids to ends, and then I'll brush it through. Even when you're doing the root, I always brush through to the ends so you're not stopping at a random place and getting a weird line of demarcation. So I'll just do that the whole way, and then she'll be good to go. And then I'll always do the money piece last. Today I'm just gonna do it at the same time, but normally I wait for like the last 10 minutes just so it's brighter. $15 to $20, just so I can have the root process the whole time since it is a demi, and I don't want it to be totally like transparent. I still want it to like shadow, but you can see the highlights a little bit. So once I do the roots, I normally go through and do the ends, and then I let her sit 15 total, just to let it sit, and then like, yeah, no, the last like 5. to 10. Sorry, did I say it wrong? Yeah, the root will be on for 15 total. The ends will be on for like 10 total. Your last money piece will be on for like the last like 3 to 5, just to keep it bright. Does that make sense? Yeah. And normally they get scared because it starts oxidizing and turning purple or something, and just, yeah, but they're fine. So, you're fine.
That was like a good point you brought up on the toners. I don't know if anyone's ever used the Wella permanent toners, but that's something with those as well. Like, it looks kind of crazy when you put it on, but trust the process. It looks frightening, but I promise it won't be like blue black when you're done. They're my favorite too. Those permanent ones are like my life saving.
So while I'm just going around cutting this bag, I just wanted to like explain why I chose this cut, why I think it's going to be a little more on trend for fall. I don't know if you guys watch, but I'm like obsessed with TikTok. I watch TikTok all the time. So all I see are these girls using these Velcro rollers, like, and making like a lot of volume in their hair, very flippy, very curly, like big, voluminous hair. So this is like a cut that really supports that type of style. Like, you need the layers and the movement to create that type of style in your hair. This is a little bit of like a lighter version of like an over-directed layer cut. I mean, you can customize it to that way if the client wants more layers in that sense. I prefer to keep things a little softer and like more low maintenance for people. Especially if they're not gonna style their hair every day, like blow drying it, curling it, setting it, things like that. You wanna make sure that you're customizing it for their lifestyle.
Something too to talk about with the people that are getting into creative color now. A lot of my clients are now working from home, so they can get a little bit crazier with their hair color, which is great. But they also need to understand that the maintenance of that is a lot more of something of like a highlighter or something along those lines. So definitely something to discuss is like washing your hair in cold water, and definitely more trips to the salon. It's not going to last as long as their other colors had in the past, but make sure they're using a good sulfate-free shampoo and conditioner as well. I do. Yeah, I was just going to say that. Fade Defy is definitely my default. I feel like it works for everybody. It's great for every hair type, but it's especially great for these creative colors. I also tell them to like wash as little as possible. Like, the less you wash your hair, the longer the color is going to last.
So I'm pulling down her face framing first. That's going to be like a part of our base layer because a lot of our layering is going to have to be doing with connecting the front into everything. So we're just going to go through and do the desired length. She doesn't want it super short, so I'm going to keep it a lot longer. And then I'm just going to take that hair that falls in that section that's above the round. That way we're not creating holes or anything like that, so it stays nice and soft. And we'll just blend that all down. Just slide cutting that down with those front sections while keeping no elevation on that as well, because once again, we just want to avoid any unnecessary holes or anything like that, because we'll be building the layers with the rest of the cut.
Something else you can recommend for these kind of colors are like the cleanse conditioner, which is the cleansing conditioner. It's actually much better to use something like that in between rather than shampooing every single time. Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, so I kind of just look at it and see like where I want which color to show more. I always do pick like one that I mainly want to see, which this time was the mauve quartz and a little bit of the lilac. And then everything else I just kind of throw in there randomly. So that's a good question. Like with people working from home, I'm definitely seeing a lot more people coming in just to get it refreshed because now they have more time on their hands. I feel like they're coming on their lunch break and stuff. But yeah, I see a lot of people coming in just about 3 times in between getting the lifting, if that makes sense. So just getting that color brightened up and stuff like that with their roots growing in, especially with the grown in look being in right now, it kind of also saves them a little money in between because we're not doing quite as long of a process every time. I do charge the creative color as well, so like the hourly price.
So I'm just jumping in on my layers really quick. So what I started with was just a small triangular section up top. And what I did was just took my fingers and kind of measured out where I wanted those layers to begin. I'm going to keep them a little bit longer for her because she really likes to keep her hair super, super long. I think she'll kill me if I cut it too short. So I just kind of eyeballed where I wanted them to fall, cut that length off, and then I started taking just a little bit of larger triangular sections, just trying to stay in my above round for now and creating more of like an angle to them and cutting off and blending those in. So they say soft, long, flowy. You can already see the difference in like her movement with just that one section.
Whenever I was talking about the retouch before, as you guys can see, like this did not take me much time, especially because I didn't go in with foils or anything and I'm letting everything just touch. It goes a lot quicker when you don't use anything to separate it, so it helps when you have colors that are all kind of similar. Now whenever I'm done with this, I'm definitely going to shampoo in cold water to keep all those from running together. But that's it for her retouch on this color. So you can see. I do. I love color loss. Yeah, I feel like it just makes the hair look smoother too, so it just helps out. All right, so you can go back over to your spot.
And then for mine, the money piece, I just tap in the front and then I let them lay. Normally I will have a towel, but she looks okay. So yeah, she'll sit. You can already tell like it's nice and blended. Yes, that's it.
So this is Rose. She's one of my regular clients. I don't know if you guys have seen any of my posts, but like 90% of my posts are all creative colors, and probably a lot of them are from her. She changes it up a lot. So for this color that I did on her today, like the split dye is what I'm seeing a lot of, and she wanted to incorporate that as well as like a nice rainbow. So all around underneath here is a halo of a rainbow. And the way I did that was I actually sectioned this out and I did the periwinkle in pink first. And then I shampooed it. I actually did it all separately. And then after I shampooed it, I went in with foils this way, if that makes sense, and did like the horizontal lines throughout. But it goes all the way underneath, if you guys can see. It doesn't run together. Anytime I'm using a yellow or anything like that, of that nature, I tend to shampoo them separately because if you run them all together, that yellow is going to grab any of those other tones and just look muddy. Yellow is super sensitive, so anytime I'm doing a rainbow, I tend to wash them separately and always in cold water. I can move this so I can show the back.
So before I start over directing my layers to blend in the front, I'm just connecting everything from my base layer to the layers I created. So everything I kind of left in that below the round, I'm just pulling up those same types of triangular sections and angling my fingers slightly up, just a little bit of elevation. You can kind of see where that weight will be sitting that you left. And I'm just going in and chipping and softening that.
So for her process from like start to finish, I went through and I lifted everything. Her ends were already like pre-lightened from a previous color we had done. So I just ran through the ends with like a 1.9 just to get like that leftover color completely out. After I lifted her, I shampooed, no conditioner, dried her, and then I went through and did the top two colors like I was saying. I braided the underneath so that it wouldn't touch those top colors, and it kept it out of the way. Sometimes the clips just aren't enough, so the braids just really held it tight without having to worry about it. After I rinsed that out, I dried again, and then I went through and foiled the underneath. So total, it took probably close to 5 hours. But with a color like this, that's just kind of what you're looking at, pretty much. The retouch took a little less time just because she was already mapped out. I can still see like the lines from before. It was much easier. But mostly like the biggest problem I have with colors like this is keeping them from all running together. So washing them separately works out really well, and cold water, definitely. Does anybody have any questions on this one? So I went through and I actually foiled, I put my foils down like this, and I did like horizontally this, like this, like this, like this, if that makes sense. I did. Yeah, so typically, like I said, I won't use foils just because it's a lot quicker and stuff. But when you get into those like rainbows and stuff, you have to use foils just to keep it all separate. Does that make sense? Yeah. That's a good question. Yeah, I do like the mesh too. But for like this, I really just like needed that foil. So I did kind of like follow through as much as I could, but I still took separate sections whenever I needed to. So like I would do a foil and add to it a couple times until it got thick, and then I would just do a new foil and keep doing that. But it's fairly easy if you I always put my color bowls in order, so that I don't mess up the pattern, because that's like my biggest concern of not seeing what's going on underneath there. Right. Exactly, especially with those light colors in there, because you just never know. Does anybody have any other questions? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. There's been like all different types of angles to use the prism, and I haven't gotten it. Like, do you feel like to use this technique of the rainbow to demonstrate the prism, do you feel like you have these specific angles that you look for? So it's a really good question. I do love using the angles when I'm doing prism color. So anytime I'm doing the same thing with pastels, I do like a 90-degree angle and then I lay it down. However, with hers, I did straight down, just because I wanted it all to lay on top of each other and kind of look cohesive after it was done. But yeah, for the prism color, definitely use an angle. That's a great question. Maybe. Any other questions for Rose?
One of the things I want to add is, if you don't follow Liz, follow Liz. Her pictures are always incredible, which is so key, because these techniques, you don't always appreciate how well they're really done. Like, for instance, her braid really set off this whole form. So follow Liz, because every time I get pictures, I'm like, wow.
Thank you.
Because they're done in the salon. They look like they were done in the studio, and they used all kind of lighting and everything else. So definitely follow Liz. But you can see that braid really made focus to the next level and showed the guests everything that's going on.
Thank you. That's a good point though too. When I first did it, when I tried to style it, you couldn't see the rainbow really, and that was like really bothering me for the picture. So the braids just helped show that rainbow underneath. I think you're good. Any other questions from anyone? All right. Thank you.
So while Liz was presenting really quick. I was just working through this top section. Super simple, super easy. Try to stay as much as above the round as I can. I don't want to take away from my base weight and length that I've created. So all I did was take a thinner section, still following like that long layer technique when you like learn volumetrics and everything like that. So just over directing that forward and keeping that angle, letting what falls and just kind of blending out that weight left in between. Then we'll do another section that way. I'm just taking out that weight in between. And then combing that, and you can see that nice fall and that lightness that she has there that we created. And I did the same thing on the other side. And then I took the same sections again and went down a little bit more, like pulled it forward and down. Found my guide where I cut her face framing area, twisted that a little forward and just kind of gave it a little bit of a slide cut just to soften it a little bit more and blend out even more. And you can see that that creates just a really nice softness, keeps everything really flowy, nothing super heavy, choppy. We're just creating really nice layers.
Bring in some male models to show you guys today, because when Shannon and I taught the clipper class together, I mean, all we were doing, all the clients we were getting were like the bald on the side, disconnected, long on the top. We're not seeing a whole lot of that anymore, and a lot of our male clients are growing their hair out longer. So something that I've been kind of talking to my guests about is I still think it's important to maintain that shape in their hair. So my male clients that are, you know, in progress of growing their hair out, they're still coming in every 8 to 10 weeks, and we're shaping up their hair because we don't want it to just go rogue and be completely unmanageable. We're not going for like a full-blown mullet. So it's nice to kind of keep the hair healthy, keep coming in for the trend. And since this is a new trend and men are recently growing their hair out more, this is something that they might not know. So, you know, be very open to talk with them about that and explain the process and ease them into that. So you guys can see Zach has amazing hair. So I asked him to come in as a pre-done model today. Now he kind of keeps like, almost like this feathered look. We keep it texturized. He has like nice thick coarse hair. And you can see, I'm gonna turn you around, Zach, how this stays kind of rounded. So if he never came in for a haircut, he would have this drop off here and almost a square look, because our back is always gonna grow a lot faster than the front is. So we're keeping a cohesive shape for him, kind of like viewing this with the layers, and then he gets movement in his hair and he doesn't have that disconnected look because he's still coming in for shape ups. Now something else that I really wanted to talk about that is something, you know, I've been with Philip Pelusi for 13 years. This is something that I'm experiencing a lot recently, is color for men. It's a great option. A lot of men are more open to it than they have been in the past few years. But you can see on Zach, I actually did a little bit of a varied technique that I just did on my color model on him with the highlights. So you can see how these highlights kind of frame upward a little bit through here and blend down softly. Now, I didn't give Zach like a full halo money piece because I don't really want to draw, you know, the eye to like a really bold color on him. I wanted to create a look that was very like sun-kissed, kind of looked naturally lightened. But when you look at his hair and the way he wears it and the way it falls naturally too, you can see it kind of flips out. So what I did on him a little bit differently than the last highlight I just showed you guys was I placed a few soft like baby lights down under here as well. Since his hair comes forward and flips out in that way, I wanted that to showcase the color all the way around his hairline. And then just a few of those pieces are focused in the back to kind of bring this all together. That's a really good question. I should have counted on. I would say, so I did 4 around the hairline. I did 2 and 2 here. And then I did the same mohawk placement that I just showed you guys. The only difference was I didn't do those pieces right here in that front line. I just baby lighted those all through the mohawk. So let's say a dozen, give or take. All right, do you have any questions regarding Zach's hair? Are you guys, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I don't think anyone would look at him and think that, you know, he highlights his hair or, you know, comes in and gets color done, but it just really accentuates like the layers, the shape, and the overall look of his hair. So I'm a fan. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think this is a great opportunity for us because we're going to take back the male business. Because barbers cannot do this, trust me.
They'll try.
Cannot do this in any way, shape, or form. We kind of lost that when for 4 or 5 years everything was just a very strict phase from skin up, you know, and trust me, this is going to bring the males back into our business. So the more we start to promote this, the more we get at this, the more we're going to grow that part of our business back again. And the cool part of this is it's high tech. So it's not just your male haircut anymore, it's your male haircut color. I mean, this looks like this could have been just done by him spending a lot of time on the beach.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I think that speaks well to it, and I think that opens up the market for us. Like she said, if she would have put stronger money pieces or stuff in it, then it kind of closes it down a little bit. We got to be aware that there's the market for that, but there's also the market for this that can be very wide open.
Yeah, great, thank you. And that kind of reminded me too is something that the reason I wanted to bring Zach in as a pre-done model and show you guys the highlights that we did is because with men wearing their hair longer, this is a much bigger opportunity for us. You know, now that they're wearing their hair longer, that's definitely something that we have a little bit more flexibility with. It gives us more room to do those highlights. They're not going to look spotty. It kind of, you know, we can lighten up those ends and give it that whole overall look, which, you know, some men are really looking for. So it opens up those color consultations with having that length to work on. Cool? All right. Thank you, Zach.
Okay, so I'm finishing up here. I just wanted to show you guys everything before I take her down and style her. I don't know if you guys noticed, I was going around kind of grabbing sections, so I'll slide cutting, keeping it super soft, blending everything out. You can see she has a lot more movement in here. I know it's hard because her hair's straight right now, but we're going to curl it. We'll show you guys all the movement and everything. But just lightened everything up a lot, made it look so much more healthier, shinier. And then you can see throughout the front, she just has that nice fall right around her face. And this can go super customizable in the front. You can make it you could start with that base length as short as you want, as long as you want. It's just more about that over direction in the front. That's going to give you that nice fall to the back. Any questions? Sorry. No? Okay. You could if you have the time. I'm just gonna like go pop some big like curls in it really quick. But if you had the time to do that, sure. But you can get the picture that John had up there. I did all of that with a round brush. So yeah, you could just kind of take your time, give yourself a little bit of extra time for the round brush. And that's an upcharge. You could style more, you know, tell them that this is a little bit more of a styling cut. You can charge them extra for that as well too. It's just a lot in your consultation too, like what they're going to maintain, how they're going to style it, things like that before you would obviously go ahead and do something like this. All right, Tay, I'm going to take you downstairs really quick and we'll style this. Should I put this on?
So coinciding with everything that I just talked to you guys about, I want to show you a haircut and how I've been kind of leading men into this growing out style. So Lane has been a client of mine for several years now, and we did have the very like short tapered look on top, kind of the disconnected look on top, or short on the sides, disconnected on top. So we have been moving him into a longer style. He's still coming in regularly for his trim so we can keep a shape. So I'm gonna kind of show you guys how I'm creating that shape that Zach kind of showed us and how I work towards that. and keep this looking like fresh and finished through the grow out process. And I know you guys will appreciate just taking a look at how great his hair is. So we really want to like work with like that natural wave and everything to show off this shape. Now, this is Lane, same highlight placement. I did put a little bit, Lane has been getting highlights for a while, so he does like a little bit bolder in the front. So we did incorporate that into his hair and then added the highlights throughout. Like since his hair's getting a little bit longer, we want to see all of those highlights come together a little bit more. So I'm just going to kind of show you how I taper this in. This isn't going to be a huge transformation, but I think it's important to know how to shape up these haircuts as they're growing out as well. And if Lane doesn't mind, I want to thank him extra because there is going to be a baby here any minute. His wife is expecting, so thanks bunches for being here. Yes, it wasn't me, I don't think, if he gets up and walks out. All right, so I'm gonna get him turned around here. I'm just taking a part right down the middle. And I'm gonna use my volumetric partings, but instead of bringing my angle shape downward, I'm gonna bring them up because I want his hair to be shaped and ready to grow out into more of that U-shaping rather than the disconnected look. I don't want him to have this shelf where his front was short and his ends were really long, okay? So I wanna pull that together in a little bit more of a U-shape. So I'm just flipping those V-shaped partings a bit, and that's gonna create that shape for me. Look down just a tad. I'm gonna work parallel to my part and kind of you can see as I pull this, over direct it, how much weight is on those sides, and that's kind of what's creating that disconnect. So we wanna start to pull that together. And you'll notice when your guests come in between haircuts, when I look at Lane, when I'm facing him, I can see when he comes in that he gets like these pretty dramatic wings here. So keeping this U shape is gonna eliminate those wings from flipping out too much. So you can see I'm using that center section as my part and doing like a little bit of freehand just to create that shape through there. The hair is really doing it for me by keeping my fingers parallel to the part. And you can even see where my sections are going to connect here. You can start to see where, because the front of the hair doesn't get as long as quickly, that these two guides are starting to meet. So those are going to piece together pretty naturally. You doing okay, Lane? have your ringer on? Okay. Then I'm going to pull that section from behind his ear, and again, you can see where those guides are starting to connect. Now, once I've made my way kind of out of this bottom nape area, I am going to start to do a little bit of release radius, just because I feel like it helps with his curls, and I don't want to create a haircut where all my weight's sitting at the bottom. I want him to have a little bit more of a layered look. I think these are crickets, but my big thing is that I like the swivel shears. I am a huge fan of the swivels. That's Kate's fault. And I am choosing to point cut just because he has this great curl, but his hair is a little bit finer. So I think that point cutting just kind of gives it a little bit more of a bounce. Now, Zach's hair that you saw, I do texturize a good bit because his texture is pretty straight and coarse, and I like him to have that kind of feathery movement in his hair. Now, with Lane's hair being a little bit curly, I really won't texturize it. I'm more relying on my layering and point cutting because I don't want to texturize and make these curls like frizzy. Mm-hmm. That's like his hair. Like that's yeah, yeah. So can you guys start to see that shape it's creating, how it kind of took that bulk off of those sides there? A good bit, I would say, yeah. Um, there's different scenarios, I guess. I mean, Lane and Zach both actually. So I've been doing Brittany's hair since 2012. So I did her hair for years, and then Lane kind of started coming in when she was getting her color done, and then we started talking about Lane's hair. So I mean, I guess technically, it was like a little bit of a referral, and it was the same thing with Zach. Kara, his girlfriend who was here, was my first client I ever had. She comes out from Monroeville to see me, and same thing. Zach came into Color for Color appointments. We started talking about his hair, and now I do his hair as well. So it's kind of built off of that. I've gotten a couple from word of mouth as well, and really just a few that I find, and this is a matter of opinion, so if anyone feels elsewise, feel free to share. But I find that when I do get a walk-in or new client referral or whatever it may be as far as men go, my male clients are loyal. They're looking for, you know, a little bit something more than what they might, you know, getting in, walking in somewhere else. And they tend to be very, very loyal. So my male clients that I do have, I have had forever. Yeah, we do. Absolutely. And I think that's a great point because I think it is a little bit of a misconception, you know. And I will say, I feel like on an average day, when you walk into our salon, you're going to see mostly female clients in the chairs. So it's a little bit of a misconception that, you know, we only do like female cuts, colors, and everything when we really kind of have it all to offer. So it is something that we should be talking to even our female guests about because they have husbands, brothers, boyfriends, you know, so on and so forth. Yeah. So I'm going to turn him around here to the side, and same thing, I want to keep my parts moving upwards, almost like how I do my highlights and my balayage, because I want this all to stay connected. I even have one of my guests, we kind of joke together, but he isn't very picky, I would say, but he has very, very hard hair to cut. It's very coarse and straight, so he's, you know, had some experience with bad haircuts. So I have done his hair religiously every 4 weeks for years and years. So I will talk to him about trends, and he's like, no, I don't care about that. No, thank you. Then he goes home and mentions it to his wife after his haircut. Then he comes back in the next time and he says, my wife says I should do that. So, yeah. Like I said, you guys, I didn't realize I would be the only one up here, so I hope I'm not boring you to death because this isn't a huge transformation haircut, but I think it is really important that we keep these haircuts in shape and knowing how to do that. Oh, you're gorgeous.
All right, so you can see the finished product. You can see how, like, I just kind of revamped that old highlights, old balayage. No, I didn't do any highlighting in that, but it just kind of refreshed it. Gave her some nice tone for the winter. Yep. Thank you. Any questions on that? Yeah.
Thinking of showing this technique.
Yeah.
One of the things we talked about is how important that application is. Can you just
Yes.
break down on that?
So that lower shadow down here, you really have to hit that at like the most right angle because if you can see that's going to grow out and it's going to hit her like in a really weird angle. So again, that's why you kind of have to, with the question earlier, like how many weeks you're going to go, you definitely have to move some of those pieces up or it's going to be looking like it needs redone. But I've been seeing a lot of that deeper shadow that is pulled down a little bit more. So you do have to really kind of maintain where, you know, that's at, and you have to know, okay, this time it doesn't need moved up. We still have that nice piece here, but you can see how it kind of, you know, comes at an angle still a little bit more.
That's beautiful.
The root was 773 and 841. I did 2 parts 7, 1 part 8.
When we saw, we were looking at pictures of this, we saw some of them like that, so wow.
Yes, yeah.
You know, the key is that we're gonna have to move that lightning up eventually. Otherwise, you're gonna lose the whole look of that, and it looks like just drug color.
Right.
Some of them we saw did look like that, and we were, adamant about getting that message across that, so that, yes, it's not just continual for us, we're gonna have to move the lightning up.
And like, you don't always have to do like the whole thing. Like I've done where I just do like a little bit on the top just to move that up. If you still want to see some more depth underneath, you don't have to do a full balayage every time. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And, her natural color was just slightly darker and not as warm, so I could have shifted it with like the 4%, but I just wanted to give it a little bit more oomph. Right? Yeah. Right. Any other questions? I do have a couple formulas that I can give to John on just different blush and like nude toners that we can put on like the Busy Stylist and stuff that I've been working on. So.
Bless you. Real quick, the last little touch on Lane is I'm still gonna pin this hair out of my way and edge him up just a little bit. That's something that male clients, even with longer hair, appreciate, especially if they start to get into a ponytail length. It's still nice to get that little edging in so that everything looks like clean, freshly done, okay? I'll move off to the side to do that so that are you? Okay, I don't wanna clip her over you. Okay. Oh, let me turn. On Lane's hair, I use just recurl. I've combed through this a bit, so I would like to rinse it before we get him like diffused or anything, but I just put a little bit of recurl in it. He kind of lets his hair do its own natural thing, and all right, so not dry yet, but you guys can kind of see on the sides how that's a little bit more tapered in, how looking at it this way, it has a little bit more of a profiled shape to it. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, instead of cutting straight across, because what I definitely don't want to do is create an inversion, unless they wanted that. I mean, I guess they could. But I want this to have a connection to it, so I keep that parting kind of straight across, even a little bit tilted, so that I can have this connected angle to it. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to present two models. Miranda has her mother, and Beth has her model. So, Beth, you want to go first?
Yes. So if you can see just how it almost looks like I did a full head highlight, almost like a full head teasy light, but again, it was just 18 foils around her hairline. She still has the highlights. And then if she pulls her hair up, you'll see the highlights back here. And then if you look down, you just see it's nice and bright with just a few highlights. I did 1.9 ounces of 10 stroke 6 and then 0.10 of 1003, just so it didn't like grab and look too dull or anything. Thank you.
What's really great about this technique is if you're in a time constraint, the guests can still get all those are looking colors. You know what I mean? So I really love this technique because if somebody comes in and changes their mind or wants color on the spot, this is a technique you can use, to get that look without needing 3 hours on the phone.
Would you charge this creative colors now?
I would, yeah. If not, you could probably at least do a full head highlight, just because of the placement and it looks like a lot. So.
And again, we gotta stop worrying about what is creative color. And just realize that if it's not a single app, we're probably heading towards creative color anymore. And by the way, having this knowledge and this ability to do this is up here. It has nothing to do with time. And we should be getting that kind of money for that kind of services that we do. Okay. Miranda.
All right, so here's her finished look. So feel free to come up if you'd like, because if you move it around, you see like different highlights. But what we were going for here is we want her to be a brunette. We want to move into like an all over brown color. But she has all of this dimension and all of these different tones of brown in it now. And you can kind of see where this focuses a little bit higher up through here and feathers down just softly. When you look at the back, tilt your head up, Mom. Perfect. You can see how she kind of has that dark crown area, and then that dimension picks up through the ends. And even look straight ahead. Perfect. Those balayage pieces that we put in underneath just makes it so that we're not looking into like this, really dark area that doesn't have dimension. So it just maintains a little bit of that in there. And I did tone her with 773. 773.
All right, this is Tina's finished product. So, like I said, it's someone like low maintenance, a lot of dimension transitioning to fall. You can see throughout the back. Sorry, Teeny. Sorry, Teeny. My bad. She has a lot of dimension throughout. So she still has those lows, but it still is like nice and blended. So, yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so I take Instagram very seriously. If they don't have a black shirt on, they wear a cape, always. But I mean, I can show you how here, stand up. I'm gonna show you how I pose real quick. So Instagram actually really helped me get a lot of girls calling in and getting requests. I'm not gonna lie to you, I shove my hair pictures down everyone's throat every day. Like, I don't care. I don't care if I post 15 and they unfollow me. It's just more marketing for me. And the more you post, the more it's going to show up on people's explore pages. I have my degree in communications, so I kind of know how to read analytics and stuff like that. If you're a business account and if you ever have questions, you can reach out to me on like what times a day to post and like how more people see it, how to set a location, and they'll see it on their For You page, things like that. But it really helped me get clients. And how I take my pictures is I post them on an angle. You can ask Julie, this takes 3 seconds. Post on an angle, head down, and then she kind of tilts to the side. And then you shoot down, because that's when you're gonna get the full head and it's not gonna cut you off. But then if you go a little bit down like that, you see all the dimension. And then if you want a front, you just go down like this and have her look a little like that, and then it takes 3 seconds. You can ask Julie, I helped her, and then you can just snap, snap, snap. But I always go on a down angle. Like I said, if you have any questions about like posting, because if you set your location to somewhere different, mine never says Philip Pelusi, it'll say Starbucks, First Watch, the PNC Park. I do that on purpose because it gets more exposure that way. So if you guys ever have questions, I can help you. But yeah, my degree's in communications and marketing, so it's the only reason why I know how to read analytics. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, let me know, because I really did get more exposure that way. And now I get a lot of phone calls for requests. So yeah, it really helps. I would post every day, twice a day, just start shoving it down people's throats. It's not bad. No bad press. I mean, press is press. So I don't care. I'll post all day. So yeah. Yeah, I'll recycle content, but I also take about 30 photos of my hair when I have a photo shoot, and I tell my clients, your face isn't in it. Like, I care more about your hair than your face, no offense. But, so, I mean, they're okay with it. I always make sure, but yeah, I get different angles. The back, when I pose them, I'll lean up, and then you just go like this, and then I'll either have them look at the ceiling a little bit, so you can see all that dimension. So that way I can post different angles, and like, you wouldn't know it's the same head. So yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Now, some people get nervous, well, because I put the same thing up 3 or 4 times. Don't worry about it, because all your followers alone are not seeing every post. That all changed 2 years ago. When we were shut down. The analytics really, really changed, and now it's about 1 out of 10 of your followers are supposed to automatically. So, you really can't.
I will say the smartest thing to do if you have a hair page, switch to a professional account. Don't make it just a basic account. I would switch to professional, because then you can see who's engaging with your posts, how many people are sharing it, who's sharing it, things like that. So you get a really big, like, you get a deeper insight of like who's actually your demographic and who you're aiming your post to. So.
That also helps you get exposed to things like search. So that affects some of you guys.
I have one more tip where if you guys want to open up Instagram, because I think I can explain it better, where your profile is and you can put your name. Mine isn't my name. Mine is Pittsburgh blonding and hair color, or Pittsburgh lived in color, because when they're searching for that on Instagram, they will be typing in Pittsburgh hair, not your name. So that's what's going to be the first to pop up. So my profile will pop up because it says Pittsburgh blonding and color. So a lot of people find me when they search that. So I would change that too, to like whatever your specialty is, or like just Pittsburgh hair. That's why I found a lot of people too. Some girl said she literally found me on Instagram because she typed in Pittsburgh blonding. So, yeah. Yeah.
So this was the color that I just did. This is all like I'm gonna spin it aside. Sorry. You guys can see all the different tones, but they're all really muted. So this is like a really good way to get that creative color effect without being too vibrant. So Rose, if you come over for a second. These are two very different looks. So a lot of people want something like this, but can't have this for their job or whatever it might be, or don't want to go quite that vibrant. So this is kind of like a whole different effect, but still getting all those tones and real pretty colors in there. And then on the top, that's that 8 NAMT, which is one of my favorites. Does anyone have any questions about Liv's hair? Alrighty. And then as for Rose's, I braided it so you guys can see the underneath a little better. And that's it. Thank you. You're good, bro.
So here's Lane's finished look. Usually he's kind of just lets it air dry because he does have these great curls. So we just lightly blow dried it a little bit so you guys could get an idea of the finished look. But you can see here in the back how he's starting to get that U shape so that he can grow out into it. And then too, something I didn't mention earlier is once he kind of gets closer to his goal length, we can kind of keep this length maintained and start letting our front grow out if that's, you know, our overall goal. But for now, we kind of have this shape to keep all of that cohesive. You can see how those layers like complement his curls, and it really kind of just helps it to look like a style while we're in the process of growing out. Any questions? Cool. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. All right, that's that. Thank you, Lane.
So you guys can see I just curled her, gave her like a nice loose wave, but all that cut does is just enhance all that movement in there. So super soft. You can add more layers, you can add less layers if you want. You can see that falls really nice around her face. No. No, it's my friend Taylor. She just doesn't color her gray hair, so, you know. She's had gray hair since she was like 18. We're just really good friends. We're just really good friends. We do. I know. We've known each other since we were like 15, so like half our lives. So, yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is really good for any texture. She has really curly, textured hair. I just asked her to come blow dried because for the sake of time. But I chose this cut more because I thought it went with like a lot of the colors that were presented here, like especially Miranda's, like her brunette. Like it would look so nice with that fall of all those light highlights and things like that. So that's why I chose this too, and more for like all the styling that I've been seeing too. So super simple, super easy. It's just more creating the length that they would want and just going with that fall of their hair. Yeah. I know, it's still super long. I cut like 6 inches off.